what I see for a successful claim, first of all, I'm going to look for the intent to file. Then I'm going to start looking at the VA Form 21-526. That is the basic application for a VA disability. And what you're going to do is there's a section where you're going to list what items or what conditions you're claiming. Nothing else. You don't have to explain when it started or whatever. You're just going to say, okay, I'm going to file for PTSD and patellofemoral pain syndrome and left shoulder impingement and sacrolumbar strain with radiculopathy, which is the pain and numbness that runs down your legs. And I'm going to list each of those conditions. So now that's going to help the rater to have a mindset of what else they need to look for.
Open ranks. On!
And I'm going to list each of those conditions. So now that's going to help the rater to have a mindset of what else they need to look for. And then you're going to have a VSR, which is the administrative arm that takes all the evidence, puts it into the claim, schedules the C&P exam, and so on. They're going to label what you're sending, and they're going to put it so that when the rater gets it, he can pull it up and take a look at the information. Okay. So you're going to put all this information together, and they're going to have the medical records. That's important. You also need to do a personal statement. The personal statement is everything they wanted to know about your condition, but were afraid to ask, and it should be very inclusive. Jerome, I know you have my template that I give to veterans that's designed by a rater and what they look for. So they're going to look for 4 basic things. How did the condition start? And you want to be graphic and detailed because the rater is not going to call you on the phone. They're not going to meet you at Starbucks for a cup of coffee. They're going to make a determination based on what evidence you submit. So the evidence you submit, first off, is your personal statement. And you're going to explain how you dislocated your knee or how you developed GERD or whatever the case may be. Okay. You're going to talk about the exposure, the event. You're going to be graphic in detail. If you're talking about how you develop PTSD, you want to explain how did you feel when the stressor was happening. I got a friend of mine who wrote his statement for his PTSD, and as he said, he stuck his head around the corner of a building, felt the bullet whiz past his face, and lost 15 pounds in 15 seconds, and it was all brown. Well, if you're scared enough that you grease your shorts or whatever you want to call it, then that is a traumatic event. And you want to establish that. What is your mindset? Because you're asking the rater to determine what the level of disability is based on were you traumatized or not. Okay. Second part is going to be how have you been treated? What kind of treatment have you had? What kind of medications? What's the dosage of the medications? If you're taking 25 milligrams of Zoloft, you may not have a severe problem. If you're taking 650, you're probably a zombie, but you have a severe problem if you're given that much in a dosage for medication. Then you're going to also look at what's called a DBQ. It's a disability benefit questionnaire. It's the same exact form the C&P doctor is going to fill out that's going to be given to the rater to determine what your rating is going to be. So if you look at the questions that are asked, you probably have a good idea what you need to put into your personal statement. So if you're talking about migraines, they're going to ask you a couple questions. Does the veteran have incapacitating episodes? Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that if you get a migraine or headache, you got to lay down in a dark room with a cloth over your face, and if anybody disturbs you, you shoot them in the face with a bazooka. Okay, you don't take 2 aspirin and go to work, so it's
Mhm.
incapacitating. Then they're going to say, okay, how often do you have these incapacitating episodes? If it's once a year, well, then you probably don't have a severe condition. But I know of people that say they have 3 or 4 migraines a week.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a severe condition. And then they're going to ask you if you have an economic impact. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you had to call in sick or leave early because of a migraine, or if you have a good supervisor who says, when you have a migraine, you go in, lay down, we put a cot in the supply room, which has no windows, so you're going to go and lay in the dark room until you get it under control.
Mhm.
That impacts your economic lifestyle because you're not working. Okay. So those questions you may want to answer. Third part, which is what are the symptoms of your condition? And the DBQ can be used to several ways. One is to help you put together your statement. Two, if you're going to get a buddy statement, which is the next thing you're going to get, um, you can show them that, hey, this is how they're going to evaluate you. And then they can talk about whether they've noticed this or not.
Mhm.
I mean, if your wife has walked in and you shot her in the face with a bazooka, then yeah, she can write about that. She's a credible witness to what you go through when you have a migraine. Um, my kids know very well what my problems are with my knees. I went to a baseball game and we took the metro system. And when I was walking down a set of metro steps, stepped down wrong, my knee gave out, and I bounced down the metro steps. So I wasn't aware the human body could bounce, but I proved that it could. And they've seen that. Well,
Mhm.
now, because I bounced and it landed on my shoulder, now I have a service connected condition for my shoulder that was created after I got out of service, but it was because of a service connected condition. So
Gotcha.
identifying what is a secondary condition to your primary conditions is also a factor that you might want to, include in that. Okay, buddy statements. What is a buddy statement? Anybody who can credibly talk about your disability. Friends, family, coworkers, people you go to church with, next door neighbor, anybody who knows about your condition and has seen how it affects your lifestyle. Okay, they're not expected to be doctors. Neither are you expected to necessarily diagnose yourself. Um, Although in this day and age, a lot of times people can figure out what their condition is and use that, but you need to have a um, credible medical professional provide the diagnosis, which of course leads us to how else do you use the DBQ? Well, you take a copy to your doctor and you ask them to fill it out, and then you submit that as evidence for about your condition.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I know people are going to say the same thing. Well, my VA doctor won't do that. Um, Chances are no, um, because they've had a hospital administrator that's worried about being sued, and so says, we don't get involved in this process.
Mhm.
But there's a VA policy letter 1134, that states not only should they, but they can do both a nexus statement and a DBQ. So you can take that with you, show it to the doctor, and if they still say no, then you always have the avenue of going to the patient advocate and
Okay.
filing a complaint. Okay,
Gotcha.
so we now have established that you're going to do medical records, you're going to do a personal statement, you're going to provide buddy statements, you're going to provide a DBQ. Is that the only evidence? No, it depends on the condition. For example, if you have a condition that is, say, unusual, I had an individual who came to me and he had a rash that was on his arms and his chest only. Now, normally, if you break out in a rash, you have it all over your body, but those were the only places, and they really looked nasty when he had a breakout. So he took a picture of it when it was not broken out, and then he took a picture of it after it had had a breakout. And let's say before it looked like somebody who had bad acne, and now once he had a breakout, it looked like a bad pepperoni pizza. And he had oozing pustules and all this other stuff. So that picture shows that here's what the condition looks like. Now I have a great idea what's going on. The other thing is, as added evidence, you can submit medical journals and stories, because in order for a doctor to remain relevant, they have to be published. So you could go to John Hopkins, or you could go to Walter Reed Hospital, you can VA, UCLA Medical, and go on their websites and see if there's any what was referred to as peer-reviewed documents or journals or articles. These are articles that have been reviewed by a peer, which is other doctors in the same field that have reviewed it and said, yeah, this is valid. Then you can submit that article to the VA, with the statement saying that, hey, here's an article that I found that, documents my condition. And the article we found was a doctor that worked at Walter Reed that talked about the caustic nature of prolonged exposure to this on the skin to diesel fuel. Well, talking to the vet, I found out that he worked in the motor pool, and when he wanted to clean the gunk, the dust and debris off of engine part, he would dunk it in a 500-gallon barrel that's cut in half and had diesel fuel inside. And then he would dunk the part and scrub it, and it got all over his arms and chest. Okay, so that proved his exposure. Okay, if somebody has a scar, if it's unstable, does it ooze? Does the skin on the scar peel? Is the scar raised or sunk in? Is it painful? Is it disfiguring? So if you have a scar that goes across the face, you're going to show that it's disfiguring. Take a picture of it. So that, you've heard the expression, picture's worth 1,000 words.
Close ranks, march!